Tired of the negativity? Looking for a shot of optimism? Well, I have an inspiring story to make you smile right after this. This episode of Misfits and Crackpots is brought to you by the Well-Crafted Story Workshop. Struggling to connect with your audience and attract new clients? Transform your speaking skills at the Well-Crafted Story Workshop with Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson and yours truly, Dr. Danny Brissell. In just 2 days, master the art of crafting compelling speeches that convert listeners into clients. Whether in-person or virtual, you'll get personalized attention in an intimate group, learning not just from expert coaches, but from fellow entrepreneurs. Don't let another opportunity slip away. Get your free story blueprint today at wellcraftedstoryworkshop.com and turn your story into your most powerful business tool. Your success starts here. Visit wellcraftedstoryworkshop.com now. You're just a well-crafted story away from 7 figures. Hello there, my friend, and welcome to Misfits and Crackpots. Short, inspiring stories for busy people. I'm Dr. Danny Brissell. This is a podcast for those interested in extraordinary stories about ordinary people and companies. Consider it your dose of positivity and inspiration for the week. Arthur Ashe said, "Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can." This week's success strategy: position yourself to succeed. He knew no poverty because he knew no better. Growing up the youngest of 7 children on Cat Island, Reginald and Evelyn's youngest son lived a happy childhood. His family had no plumbing or electricity. The island did not have much in the way of schools or jobs either. They had no radio, television, or telephone, no cars, not even a paved road. In fact, he had never seen himself in a mirror. He had only seen his reflection from pond water or baking pans. As he described it, "What's coming at you is the sound of the sea and the smell of the wind with your mama's voice and the voice of your dad and the craziness of your brothers and sisters, and that's it." For the first 10 years of his life, he lived on that idyllic Bahamian island. After his father's tomato business failed, however, his family moved to Nassau. As he told it, everything changed. "At the age of 10 and a half, I ran smack into urban, modern, cars, movies, hotels, restaurants, nightclubs, bars, dance halls. And that transition from childhood idol to urban launched me straight into manhood. By the age of 14, I was no longer a child." His life could have taken a turn for the worse, but he had extraordinary parents whom he admired greatly. Although his father was a poor man, his youngest son saw him do extraordinary things. Reginald worked hard to provide for his family, despite his rheumatoid arthritis, and his son respected him for never losing his dignity. Mom was a quiet woman, a loving woman, a hard worker. She would scour around their Nassau neighborhood in search of big rocks, some as heavy as 50 pounds. For weeks, she would crush the stones into tiny pieces and sell the completed piles to men to use as gravel. And with some of the money she made, she would buy flour sacks and make pants and shirts for her children's school clothes. Her youngest son only attended school for a couple of years in Nassau. By the age of 13, he was doing hard labor around construction jobs. After his best friend was sent to reform school and his older brother Cedric was sent away to the colonial prison system for a petty offense, his father feared his youngest son, too, would fall into delinquency. So he sent him away to Miami to live with his older brother Cyril. While Miami and the Bahamas shared a similar climate, nothing had prepared Reginald and Evelyn's youngest son for the inequities that existed in the American South of the 1940s. He had never had to be conscious of stepping off the sidewalk to let someone pass. Arriving at the age of 15, he realized that there were different values in America. He later recalled, "Here, you are not the person you think you are, but I came with 15 years of preparation. I was strong enough to say to myself, the me that I'd been for 15 years, I like that me. That's a free me. I can't adjust to being a restricted me. The law said, you cannot work here, live here, go to school here, shop here. And I said, why can't I? And everything around me said, because of who you are. And I thought, I'm a 15-year-old kid, and who I am is really terrific. Luckily, I had the beginnings that I did, and every time restrictions were in my face, I could say, let me remind you who I am. Fortunately, his mother and father provided him with strong roots, and his strong will and character would serve him well throughout his life. After working a summer kitchen job in the mountains of Georgia, he found himself in an Atlanta bus station with $39 in his pocket, enough to buy him a one-way ticket to New York City. Arriving in Harlem with only a few dollars in his pocket, he slept in bus stations and on rooftops until he earned enough money to rent a room. In order to escape the cold, he lied about his age and joined the army. But the army did not suit him, and he acted insane to receive a medical discharge. By the time he was 18, he was back on the street in New York, trying to make ends meet on a dishwasher's salary. Scanning the want ads of the Amsterdam News, he saw an ad that read, "Actors Wanted." He later recounted, "What the hell?" I thought. "I've tried dishwashers wanted, porters wanted, janitors wanted. Why not try actors wanted? I figured that I could do the work. Acting didn't sound any more difficult than washing dishes or parking cars." But when he auditioned for a role at the American Negro Theater, the man in charge quickly let him know he was in over his head, as he could barely read. "You just get out of here and stop wasting people's time," the man told him. "Get yourself a job as a dishwasher or something." How did that man know I washed dishes for a living? He thought to himself. Resolved to prove the man wrong, he would listen to the radio for hours on end in his apartment, repeating every word to modify his accent. And at work, a generous elderly Jewish waiter volunteered to read the newspaper with him every shift. They studied late in the restaurant, long after closing time, night after night. And it worked. 6 months later, the American Negro Theater accepted him to become their janitor, and they let him study acting in their troupe. His acting gradually improved, but when it was time to cast the first big production, they cast someone else for the lead. Settling on being an understudy, he had to fill in for the lead on the night of the production's first major run-through. As luck would have it, a casting director saw his performance and enjoyed it enough to cast him in a production on Broadway. While the play was panned, critics praised his performance, and that performance led him to another Broadway show. And that show led to his first movie. He seemed bound for success, but it was never an easy road. His acting career had a lot of false starts. The work was not always steady, and despite receiving acclaim for his early film roles, he found himself back in Harlem washing dishes. He opened a few rib joints with a buddy, but with a wife and daughter and another child on the way, he was struggling. Still, when a prominent agent offered him a role in a film, he passed, to the astonishment of the agent. Reginald and Evelyn's youngest son had a problem with how his character handled himself. The character had no dignity, and he wasn't going to play any role that might dishonor his values. He turned down a role that would pay him $750 a week and borrowed $75 on the furniture in his apartment because he desperately needed the money for the birth of his second daughter. "Well, I'll tell you what," the agent said. "I don't know what's going on with you, but anybody as crazy as you, I want to handle him." The crazy kid from the Bahamas would change Hollywood. His films were box office hits, proving that stories centered around African American characters could be commercially successful. Over the course of the next 50 years, his performances were not only critically acclaimed, but also challenged audiences during the height of the civil rights movement. He used his celebrity status to advocate for social change, and he became a symbol of hope and inspiration for many who sought racial equality. And his unprecedented Academy Award for Best Actor shattered the racial glass ceiling in Hollywood and opened doors for future generations of minority actors. His commitment to roles that depicted African Americans with dignity and complexity set him apart in an industry that had long perpetuated racial stereotypes. By becoming the first African American to direct a film that grossed over $100 million, he also paved the way for other minority directors and filmmakers to follow. Indeed, the Trailblazer's body of work has left an enduring legacy. Countless actors, filmmakers, and activists credit him as an inspiration, as his work continues to be studied and celebrated to this day. But it was the enduring values of dignity that positioned Reginald and Evelyn Potier's youngest son, Sidney, to succeed. See, friend, inspiration is all around us. You just have to look for it. Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another inspiring story about misfits and crackpots. Misfits and Crackpots is a production of Success Media, produced by Terrence Wishner. Sound effects by Alessandro Lucati, courtesy of Pixabay. Thank you for tuning in. If you love today's story, there's so much more to explore in the book Misfits and Crackpots by yours truly, Dr. Danny Brissell. Grab your copy now on Amazon and dive deeper into the extraordinary lives of those who dared to change the world. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with fellow misfits who love inspiring stories. See you next time.